Krishna Stai Buddhare Shimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Devam Gaudavani Pacharnami Nivashesha Sunyavadi Pashkata Deshatarne. So, when I was thinking about the way I wanted to glorify Prabhupada, the thought occurred to me that he was like a spiritual medical master. What I mean by that is that I'm going to draw a comparison to the way the medical industry evolved and how when Prabhupada came to America, how he kind of super elevated and evolved the whole spiritual marketplace. I think most of us are aware of the fact that go back a couple hundred years, there was a lot of weird stuff that was, better? Sorry. There was a lot of strange things that were included in the medical trade that didn't necessarily, I think I got it, that didn't necessarily have really anything to do with making you any better. There was all sorts of strange traditions, and this went on all over the world because people just didn't have any knowledge of the medical industry the way we do today with germs and, you know, vaccines and a variety of different ways to heal the body. So things like, you know, getting a tree that had been hit by a bolt of lightning was important in a ritual to heal somebody because it had some mystical power because somehow another bolt of lightning hit it. And we know that they had strange things that were, again, totally irrelevant to healing the body that were used, such as special stones or claws from animals, especially the American Indians had quite an array of things, but I think this was prominent. This was going on all over the world 200 or 300 or 400 years ago. Feathers, different things were used. And we know that they didn't really have any medical healing powers. Although, before I go on, I want to acknowledge that somehow or another, I think most of us know that somehow they understood the medicine of herbs. And there are definitely a lot of herbs that are very valuable and can be used. And even the pharmaceutical industry is not real happy about letting that information out, because why would you go to the drugstore and spend $20 or $30 or $50 for something if you got it growing in your backyard? So they don't really want you to know that. But there's a lot of books that are out there. So as time went forward, of course, these things got straightened out. And when Prabhupada came to America in 1965, the analogy that I'm trying to draw is that the spiritual marketplace was filled with a lot of really strange things that really, according to what we understand, have absolutely nothing to do with lifting your consciousness and becoming aware of how to actually escape the material world. I live in Ojai, and I think some of you know, as a matter of sort of public research, I get invited to a lot of things. And one time I was invited to go to a very spiritual program. You know, they knew I was interested in spiritual things, and so I'm always curious by what is considered in today's world to be a very spiritual program. So I went, and when I got there, everybody was laying down on the ground, and somebody was going around, and they had a flute, and they had different things they were banging on, and playing didgeridoo. I don't know if you know what a didgeridoo is, but, and then hitting a gong, you know, and playing this thing that's kind of like a wind chime. They go, you know, this sort of, and they were doing all these different sounds. And basically, that's what this really big spiritual program was all about, which I basically sat there and just thought, okay, I'm really glad I'm a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, because none of this really impressed me very much. But the point is that Prabhupada came to America, and this kind of stuff was going on all over the place. And of course, Prabhupada was from India, and where I think his strongest influence was, and some people have hinted about this earlier this morning, was how he, very boldly, really kind of pulled some of this out in the street and said, hey, look, what's going on here? For example, there was a gentleman who was in America at that time who had already made a very prominent business selling mantras. And Prabhupada said, well, why are you selling a mantra? And what mantra are you selling? And why are you selling it? It should be given. If it's such a good thing, give it to the people. So he didn't hesitate because he was very successful. Similarly, a lot of these, I think a lot of us have heard these mantras, Tatam Asmi, Soham, and another one is Prajad Brahman. These are all the impersonalist mantras that are used. Tatam Asmi, you are that, for example, or I am that, or Brahman is pure knowledge. And he said, yeah, that's fine, but that's really not what life is all about. And that's not even, that's a little bit misrepresenting. So why are you teaching this? And probably more emphatically was in his own hometown, Calcutta, there was a man there teaching that Kali was the Supreme Lord. And of course he said, where is that in the Vedic literature? Where is that in the Vedic literatures? Where does it say that? Krishna says, I am the Supreme Personality of God. There's no truth superior to me. Why are they teaching this Kali is the Supreme Lord? He wasn't at all intimidated by the fact, and to this day, there's a very big temple in downtown Calcutta, right next to the Howrah Bridge. It's a Kali temple. It's still very popular. Bengal is very big on Kali worship, and Prabhupada was from Bengal, and yet he didn't hesitate to say, no, this is not correct. This is not what we teach. This is not. Kali Ma is there, and we respect her, but she's not the Supreme Lord. And then his disciple came along and taught Dridra Narayan, which is a similar concept in the Bible, which is, Jesus says, as of to the least of these, you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. So the concept was, and we all know that Calcutta particularly 50 years ago, and probably still a lot today, there's a lot of poor people. They're not very fortunate. So this disciple was saying, we need to see God in the poor people. And Prabhupada said, Dridra Narayan, God is not poor. He's extremely opulent. He has all of the opulences, all 6 opulences. Why are you saying Dridra Narayan? It's not Dridra Narayan, it's Hare Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in all these opulences. So in this way, Prabhupada actually boldly just declared, challenged all of these people. Somebody came to America as a young boy. He said, I'm God. Prabhupada said, no, you're dog. And he said, and if you're God, then strike me down with a lightning bolt right now. He was not at all intimidated, nor was he worried about bad things people might say behind his back. Anyhow, he went through all of these things. The philosophers, he said, this actually had a big impact on me, because when I was younger and I was still in school, I read the 4 flaws. We all know the 4 flaws: propensity to cheat, propensity to make mistakes, propensity to delusion, and the 4th one. But, when I hit that, it was like, I can't get around that. I can't out-philosophize that. I have to admit, these are the things that keep me from actually understanding the highest truth. So the only conclusion is the opposite of what was very prominent in the day, which is just sit down and meditate and you'll figure it all out, which doesn't work. You can meditate, Prabhupada said, you can meditate for thousands of years, but if you don't actually have access to the highest truth, it's not going to do anything for you. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada did for the spiritual marketplace what, through the process of, I guess you would say, scientific research, they finally figured out that, having the eye of newt or a leopard toad at some kind of a medical event was somehow going to help the person heal. He said, no, all of these things, they're not going to help you. These are just part of what happens in the world. So in this way, Prabhupada was the master spiritual physician. And he was delivering us the priceless Vedic herbs in this way, comparison. The Vedic truths was the one thing that was actually legitimate in the medical industry, was the herbs. American Indians figured out that if you took a birch tree and took the bark and boiled it, it actually has the same equivalent chemical effect on the body that aspirin has. Of course, they don't want to tell you that when you go to the pharmacy. And in the same way, who was willing to tell us that a lot of this stuff was not going to help you? But Prabhupada did. And in this way, he protected us from the deadly deviations of sentimental, useless, fraud spiritual teachings. And he was bold about it. So this is my appreciation for who Srila Prabhupada was. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mayesvara Prabhu. Jai Jagadish Prabhu.